we're talking about because we all know that we hate old politicians, right? Everyone hates old politicians. I get it. But I'm kind of annoyed by this consistent dialogue about the idea that younger is better. Because I've yet to see anyone in the political sphere these days, at least at the national level, that's proven to me that youth is some type of proof of great new ideas, right? Like I know a lot of people really like somebody like Matt Gaetz, but if we're talking like the AOCs of the world or the Rashida Tlaibs of the world, am I really supposed to buy that those are the bastions of great new ideas?
Absolutely not. I like that you mentioned this because as somebody who I've been making a ton of ridiculing remarks about Biden, and I do think it's ridiculous that this is one of our main choices. Someone who does seem to be having some cognitive issues, but at the same time, I'm glad you said this because I do feel like we've now tipped on social media into this ageist conversation where it's just assumed. Like I see memes like get out of here, you old people, and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, wait a minute. So
people hate the boomers, man. People really hate boomers. That's I don't know if it says more about my feed, but I see so much discussion about like people. Like I was reading this thread about how this lady. It was a really cringe take from like an old person. It's like this old couple. They're like, we have more fun than our daughter. I'm like, well, yeah, like your daughter's probably drowning in student loan debt, just barely making it through the day. That's not a flex. It's not harder. It's not hard to have more fun than somebody in their 20s and 30s. But also people forget that for a lot of families, it's not like your parents were just out partying in their 20s or their 30s. They had a family and they had jobs and they got to appreciate their wealth later. Now I get it. The economy has been decimated and they hold on to positions for ages, and that's a perfectly reasonable critique, but it so quickly devolves into like, woe is me. And I'm always like, okay, so what's the solution? I don't know what the answer is, but it always just feels like passing the buck along to something else. Not that I don't have my own disdain for things the boomers have done. I just find that most of the time it's coming from a place of, I don't know what the solution is. I just want to complain about it.
I totally agree with that. And I'll tell you I was talking about this today online. I'll tell you what's going to make this antipathy or anger toward the boomers worse is that we have a massive debt problem in this country, which I know that we've had a debt problem as long as I've been alive, but it has truly become unprecedented, even adjusting for inflation. I'm sure you know this as well.
34 trillion now.
And even adjusting, I'm sure you know this, even adjusting for inflation, it's now our recent deficits that we've been running worse than World War I, World War II, the 80s, and so forth. And it has gotten to the point where if you look at a pie chart of government spending, you're going to see, yes, a quarter is military and defense, which we could cut some of that perhaps, right? But a quarter of it is Social Security, a quarter and growing, a quarter of it is Medicare, and then almost, I think a quarter now of it is just the interest on the debt. Yep. And so like everybody knows that that's untenable. But what's scaring me now is that you're hearing a lot of voices in the business community and economic community that you used to not hear talking about like, no, actually, this is reaching some kind of a tipping point. Yeah. And so what I meant about the boomers is that, the two biggest expenditures of the government, Medicare and Social Security. And I'm certainly not saying that, people who've paid into it, I certainly understand why they want their services. And I want us to be a society that takes care of the elderly and all of that. But I don't know what's going to give because, raising taxes, that's not popular. And also that's not going to fix it. We could cut some of the defense spending, but I guess what I'm saying is we are going to have to, if we want to do something about the debt, we're going to have to make some cuts in Social Security, Medicare.
It's the foreign aid. Got to get.
That's not like the biggest thing, though, is it?
No. But the point is, it's a good place to start. It's a fantastic place to start.
I'm down with that. I'm down with
if the first thing that we have to do is to cut our foreign spending to other countries, and I think that that's a very reasonable first step. It's funny because you always hear the discussions because I have a lot of friends who live in Europe and stuff like that, and they wonder why America can't afford basic universal health care or why things like that, why expenditures are so big here. I was like, well, what you don't understand is that your governments likely basically use our U.S. military as their defense against the rest of the world, right? Like there's a reason why there's strong critique of NATO and the UN and all of these groups where we seem to give a lot. Now, again, I'm not as well read on this stuff as I used to read a lot more, and I used to pay attention a lot closer, and certainly things may have changed in the last couple of years. I don't know, but I do know that we put a lot of stuff in and we get very little out. And that's when I say the US government gets very little out, the American people get nothing out of this. So
well, that's a good place to start. It's unfortunately it's not going to come anywhere near solving the problem, but I'm definitely I'm with you on that. And by the way, like I apologize because I should have put a thumbnail together that had some like topical stuff on it. And
I know.
So I'm looking at like your view count and I'm like, oh no, but I think this is a good conversation. So I'm probably going to chop it up and put out some shorts based on this because I've been trying to do that more with my streams lately.
Yeah. So. I was like, we could talk about what I love about doing this stream is that I don't have to, you just pick the topics and we go. The one I mentioned was the hilarious thread that went viral about this guy getting made fun of for showing his girlfriend the movie Miami Vice, which I love.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Okay. So like just the other day, it's such a silly, like terminally online thing to talk about, but this guy basically said like, look, my girlfriend asked to see my favorite movie of all time, and he showed her the 2006 Miami Vice movie, which I've always contended is a fantastic movie that just a lot of people don't like. But again, I'm a dummy and movies don't have to make total sense for me to love them, though I did rewatch it recently and I felt like it made a lot more sense than it did when I first saw it.
It's Michael Mann. It's a good movie.
It's a Michael Mann movie. Yeah. So, and like there was a lady who responded who then went like basically back and forth with people for 3 days where she said that basically like this movie can only be understood because of the heteronormative experience and that straight people live in a completely different world than us. It was absolutely hilarious and bonkers. And when you start realizing that people who live terminally online, you know, you start hearing phrases like heteronormative experience. I was also hearing people arguing about whether it was propaganda, which by the way, it's funny because I just hate buzzwords. I actually do believe that a lot of the stuff that I love absolutely is what you would consider police propaganda, meaning like I love the idea of stories that tell simplistic ideas of good and evil, right? And they use police procedurals and things like that as a template for that. And deep down, I would love to believe that the state provides us with benevolent, honest do-gooders who work in those fields. Now, I'm smart enough to understand that that is not how the real world works, but that's not why I watch TV and movies. I don't watch TV and movies to see the real world. Now, there are plenty of shows that show, you know, the gray areas of that. Certainly The Wire, The Wire and The Shield both excelled at that, right? But that's not really why people watch like network TV procedurals and stuff like that. But as soon as you start using phrases like propaganda. I just like my favorite tweet was somebody's like, is Miami Vice propaganda? And then just ... It says, please go outside, do anything, just get some fresh air.
Yes.
Anything but talking about this on Twitter.
Yes, I was thinking the other day, Brett, that one of the things I hate about how much just media there is out there and social media is that people have become so desperate for things to talk about, like original stuff, that there's just so much more, like so many more crappy opinions.
Hey, like that's probably what they're saying
Us
about my
included,
opinion.
I'm sure. I know it's true. Well,
did you like that the Miami Vice movie? Did you ever see it?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. I think I might have seen it twice, actually. I thought it was, I mean, I think almost all of Michael Mann's movies are good. Yeah. It was not as good as Heat, of course, but
nothing is.
Standard
right?
is way up there. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, all of those guys. No, I thought it was a good movie. That's not, and what's funny is that's not even a movie that I would think of to criticize for heteronormativity. I mean, yeah, there was a romantic.
There's three technically. So both Crockett and Tubbs have relationships. You have Tubbs has the Naomi Harris is, you know, Jamie Foxx and Naomi Harris. And then obviously the other one is Russell Crowe, and he's with it was Russell Crowe, right?
I don't remember.
Okay. With Gong Li's character, but then she's also involved.
It was Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. I'm sorry, I said Russell Crowe. And I love Russell Crowe though. We're not going. He's not going to be in the Gladiator this year, so that's sad. But Colin Farrell has his relationship with Gong Li's character, and then her character, she's like basically the financial planner for the drug lord.
Okay.
And she's involved with him. And I saw this great description of the movie being about like love in the face of knowing it's wrong and going forth with it anyways. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. Like, I love the idea that you can watch something that's about one thing and know that it's about more than that, because at the heart of it, it's like, it may be about things that are inaccessible to most of us, like the drug war and the life of undercover cops in Miami, or what it's like to be a worldwide drug distributor. But that's not really what resonates with the average person. That might bring the guys into the movie, right? Like a dude like me is going to be like, yeah, cool, awesome, I love that. Fine. But if you're a woman and you're watching that movie, you're watching a story about two people in love, despite the fact that there's a myriad of reasons why they shouldn't be together. And that's interesting to multiple people. But I just laugh because to me, that movie is special for a lot of other reasons. One is that it was made during hurricane season. So there's a lot of wide shots in that film that you literally cannot fake in a way today, where if you made it with CGI, it would look unbelievably fake and unrealistic, because the whole scene would be built from scratch in post-production rather than actually shooting it on location in Florida during hurricane season. So there's these natural light shots that are total gray skies with trees that are moving in a way that you would not be able to fake digitally, that bring atmosphere to the film. And that film, as well as Collateral in 2004 and parts of Ali, which I believe was 2001, were the first experiments that Michael Mann did into shooting digital. So about 3/4 of that movie were shot on phantom cameras back in like 2005. So there's these great low light shots with all sorts of digital grain that gives it this unique look that would just not be done today, because it would look too polished in a way now. And all of that flies in the face of this woman basically saying, you're a bad person and your girlfriend should break up with you because you love this movie.
I mean, first of all, that was a much better description of the movie's merits than to say it was than its flaws, to say it was heteronormative. I mean, that's just a lazy comment, first of all. But that's not even, though, if I were wanting to write a critique of heteronormativity in Hollywood, like, that just would not be one of the main ones that would pop up for me. So that's kind of interesting. But
also, somebody also pointed out, they said that critique, just like propaganda, it's like, okay, but there has to be more than that. That can't be an instant detractor. You have to give more than one reason as to why that's a negative for this film.
Propaganda. I mean, there's certainly a lot of films, though, that show the dark side of police work, or that show that there is a shady element with some police officers and so forth. I just saw the other day, for like the 5th time, it's my favorite Johnny Depp movie. I just saw Black Mass again. And
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, you
I
should
thought you were
see it.
I
It's
thought you were
not
going to say
propaganda,
Public
though.
Enemies. I thought you were going to say Public
That's
Enemies.
a good Michael Mann one too, right? You're just a big Michael Mann fan.
I am.
No, but what was interesting is I didn't know the whole story with with James Whitey Bulger. You know, he's the gangster, the Irish American gangster that Jack Nicholson's character in The Departed was based on loosely. But the more interesting part of the story for me is this cop, this FBI agent, that he ended up basically turning, and he was like in The Departed, he was basically a kind of a mole for him. And so the movie gets into actually this idea of the double life of some police officers who were involved in a shady shit. But that's that's funny. What since we haven't talked in like 2 months, really.
Has it been that long? Time flies.
It has. It does.
Time
And
flies.
people are asking me, why I'm doing this again, or why I wanted to do a show with you out of the blue. But I really have been wanting to do this for a while, and things, like I said, in my life just got so crazy where I just couldn't do streams anymore. But they're better. And people have missed ours. I know Shane Wilder has, but a bunch of people, and he's here. I'm going to read his comment. A bunch of people have missed this. So yeah,
I like it because it's 8 o'clock now. So somehow 8 to 10 makes more sense to me than 9 to 11.
We can do that. We can start doing that. So
8 to 10 makes way more sense.
Can't make it a regular thing again yet, but definitely want to do it more often. And we'll and I won't script the thumbnail next time. So this is something people should understand about the algorithm. Like the thumbnail that I did, which I thought was really cool and cute, it says he's back, and it's got Brett in it. It was actually a skating video
Yeah,
that
it
someone
was
did
taken
about you.
from when I was back home visiting friends in Minnesota last year.
Yeah, and it was an interesting video about your skating. But anyway, so I took part of that and I put my face on it. But here's the thing with the algorithm is if you don't put, and you know this, if you don't put like something about a celebrity or something political, then it just basically like halves your viewership. So it's okay. I'll change the thumbnail when I get off, and then I'll make some shorts out of this because it's fun. It's fun
What's
conversations.
funny about it is like, so we notice this every time there's a holiday, right? Like it feels like our views go up when we take days off. Like it feels like
Maybe.
now I don't know if we get punished, if the algorithm punishes you. I know a lot of YouTube channels have clips channels for this exact reason, right? They put their clips on one channel and they leave their live streams on
I
another.
think twice a week is
Yeah.
the ideal for YouTube. I mean, more than that is fine too, but I think that yeah, you need to be doing it twice a week. But my holidays are good too. It might just be a holiday thing, Brett. I've noticed that like over
Yeah.
holidays, my views
Views
go
go
way
up.
up.
Yeah.
Andrew Jacobs says Kurt and Dasovic in his house. Yeah, and by the way, Andrew, I wasn't trying to be a bitch earlier. Your comment on Twitter about Timcast because you said, "Oh, you're going to be streaming at the same time as Timcast," and
Yes.
I said I can't work around other people's streaming. I wasn't being a bitch, and I know you didn't take it that way, but no, it just truly is like people are always streaming. So like Tug streams every day. Doesn't Tim stream a lot? Like
I mean,
IRL or not?
IRL is 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So IRL is 5 days a week at 8. Like, so like that's the same for us, right? Like we just hit episode 647 today.
Mm-hmm.
So we're approaching episode 650 and I got to like go, ugh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great though. Okay, here's Mr. Shane. I missed you, Shane, too, honestly. I'm happy that you're back now that I have your man over here again. The return of Kurtz and Dasovic Monday Night Raw. Let's effing go, yeah, jabronis.
Jabronis. He's a
Glad.
wrestling fan, clearly.
Oh, okay. Glad Olivia let Brett do a stream for once. LOL. Just kidding, Olivia. Oh, yeah.
Olivia's working. So I've snuck the stream in
Talk
while she's
about
at work.
I want to talk about Olivia actually in a second. Dan Campbell says can only listen a few minutes tonight. I understand. My God, you look fantastic. Well, I'll tell you about that in a second too. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. You're the one on the left. Ha ha ha. But you look okay too. DC the troll.
I saw your post where people were talking about your hair.
Well, it did look bad. I mean,
look, I feel like you give that too much effort, man. Like when you like you copy the post and then you respond and then you tweet about it. Like people say mean things to me and I just go, ugh.
Oh, well, I get mean things all the time, but actually like no, I ignore like 99.9% of what I get. But when I repost things, it's really not generally because it hurt my feelings, but it's because I actually want to sort of explain to people, other people in my audience, like kind of what's going on. Because like the other night, I think normally I do look good. But the other night, I knew before I got on stream, I was like, I've been outside. I don't even feel like running a brush through my hair or whatever. And so sometimes people think like if I were going on stream, like I would make sure I'm looking good. Like people almost take it as kind of a disrespect. And so what I was basically doing was just kind of like reminding people, like this is my hobby. And as you know, Brett, sometimes it's just hard to get yourself together for a stream, right? And so sometimes I really have this choice of like either I'm going to just sit down as I am, like totally as I am, or I'm not going to stream tonight, right? But I
wear a
appreciate what you're
black
saying.
shirt to work every single day. I wear basically the same thing to work
But
every
you're
day.
a man. It's different.
Yeah.
It is
It's very different.
I mean, Mary always looks. Has she ever not been put together for?
No. She takes. She always shows up to work looking right. I, on the other hand, wear a black shirt and sweatpants to work every day.
But it's like above the waist. People see your face and just a black top. It's not bad. Andrew Jacobs says, "F boomers. I'm a Gen X boomer, so I can say."
Wait, what the hell is a Gen X boomer? Those are contradictions in terms.
I guess he's like kind of like
on the edge.
Yeah, I'm an X millennial, and so I'm right on the line. So that's what.
So you're a zillennial.
Is that what it's called?
Or no, a zillennial is a millennial Gen Z cusp.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. He's saying though, yeah, he's on the cusp of boomers and Gen X. All right. So Shane Wilder says, "Oh, I feel so loved." I think absolutely, Shane. Dan Campbell says the police are just people, some courageous, some bullies, some respectful of the Constitution. Their jobs will be largely automated for the better, like the rest of us. I mean, go ahead.
What's funny about that is like he's right. In the interesting thing about it is like TV shows for decades have basically tried to train the public to be okay with like people on with cops ignoring the Constitution. It's like it's the classic scene. It's like, I think I hear a dog barking inside, and then they kick down the door, right? Or they don't inform, or they don't inform you of your rights, or all of these things, which is like, it's done in a way narratively that's okay because they're very much portrayed as the good guys. And usually they portray the bad guys as so irredeemable. You don't feel bad that they're going to get their comeuppance. But the problem is that same logic can be applied to the everyday man and woman. And that's where you have a problem. That would fall on the label of propaganda. But just don't call it that because you're a terminally online nerd if you use that term seriously.
Yeah, that word is that's just funny. By the way, we found your channel here, Pop Culture Crisis. Check it out. Like I said, they're booming over there, but very productive. Y'all never miss a show. I mean, unless it's a holiday, right? Or
What's
someone's
funny
sick.
is like we've also like adjusted our video schedules. So we used to put out 3 to 4 a day, and then
You did 3 to 4 videos a day?
Well, like we would clip from
You
the
cut up your
previous.
stream.
We've dropped that to 2, and we've watched the views go up on the 2 that go out every day, and then we've just upped the content output on the weekends so that you get more segments. Because then when you've got the whole day to release videos on Saturday and Sunday with no stream anywhere, we can stagger the releases from like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So,
right. You definitely have it, and you have a much just like tighter operation, I think, over there than I do. But anyway, so what have you been like the last couple of months? Has anything come up that you've been really interested in or that you've covered a lot on your channel? I have not, because I've been so busy. I haven't watched yours much.
What
Or
have we
anyone's.
covered? It's so funny. I feel like you've asked me this like on streams before, and it's kind of like when you get a question and your mind goes blank. I'm like, what have we? Okay, so what I found to be the most fun to cover tends to be like generational differences between like millennials and Gen Z and boomers and Gen X. I find discussing that stuff to be the most fun because depending on who you have on that day, you can have an interesting discussion with anyone because everyone has a unique experience that relates to the year or the time period in which they were born. Like we had a discussion the other week where we talked about the concept of sad fishing. That's an actual term. So you will understand this because you lived through the age of AOL Instant Messenger. So back in the day, your girlfriend or it was probably mostly women, your boyfriend does something that annoys you. So you put some emo lyrics up on your away message to indicate what your emotions are, you know?
Okay, that's more sophisticated than I was.
But, that's something that happened, right? So now we have, basically it's the same thing as vague booking on Facebook, where you make a generically ominous statement and then wait for people to ask you what's wrong. And they're talking about how these things apply to Gen Z, who is more online than any previous generation, certainly being born into a life of computers and the internet. And stuff like that is what I find interesting because I could talk to somebody from Gen X or a millennial, somebody from Gen Z, or even a boomer and get 10 different descriptions of how they feel about something like that. And it's not so serious, like talking about strict cultural issues, which we do a lot too. Like we talked today about Tatiana Maslany. She played She-Hulk, talking about how parents shouldn't be allowed, or the schools shouldn't inform the parents when their students decide they want to use new pronouns. And I see that stuff and I'm like, it's too serious. I don't want to talk about that. It's too serious, right? Like, I get it.
Kind of a
it's important. And if you don't talk about it, certainly you just let it slide and then the culture just moves on without you because you're not willing to push back on it. But that stuff to me is always just such a bummer. Like, it's such a bummer.
I hear you. I thought you were going to say something medical, like the schools don't have to tell the parents if their kids are using hormones, but like, should the schools have to tell their parents that they're using pronouns?
I think that the parents have a right. I think that the parents have more of a right to know than anyone else. So yes, I just don't trust the teachers if they're not actually pushing this on the kids anyway.
Well,
so
I mean, that could definitely be so.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion about? Well, let me say, I kind of wish people would leave J-Lo alone. Like I feel like J-Lo. I was going to make a video about this, and I never got around to it. Maybe I still will at some point, but I get why she's annoying. Like, she she really pushed her relationship. I mean, she's pushed all
Mhm.
of them to a degree, but she really pushed her relationship with Affleck out there. And
Yeah.
when they got married, all these pictures and this ridiculous long diary entry that
Yeah.
she posted on Instagram, basically talking about their love. And I hope you too one day can find love at 12 a.m. in a Vegas wedding booth or whatever, and it
Yeah.
was just like sappy and very, very exhibitionist, emotionally like exhibitionist. So I mean, I get all of that, like annoyance with her. But it seems like so many people have
Yeah.
absolute glee about the fact that her marriage is apparently crumbled
Mhm.
and acting like she's a horrible person and, oh God, Ben, he's got to get the hell out of there and all of that. And I really do. I don't use the term misogyny very often, but I really do think there's something misogyny or something else, something kind of gross going on with the reaction to her, to
Um,
that divorce. Am I wrong?
I don't think that you get to self-fund an Amazon movie about your wedding and not expect
Uh,
pushback. Like, okay, here's my
well,
general rule. If you're going to self-fund millions of dollars to make a movie about your wedding,
2 movies about that. Well,
to,
about her romance, yes.
then you do not get to say that you don't deserve derision unless the marriage lasts at least 2 years.
Well,
Okay, 1 year for each movie. That's all I'm saying. Plus, she has the added benefit of just being generally disliked because they find that she has diva behavior, right? Like that's just how she's always been seen. And I don't know if I would call that misogyny because I think that there's plenty of women that would take issue with diva behavior. And I don't think it necessarily has to do with her gender, but rather the inaccessible nature of her personality.
well,
Like did you see the thing about her flying commercial lately?
yeah,
Whenever I see a celebrity do that, it's my version is like, when you see the meme about old people trying to fit in, it says, hello, fellow kids. It's like when it's a celebrity
it
doing
does
it, it's
look
like,
awkward.
hello, fellow plebs. I too am like you.
Yeah, I don't know. And by the way, y'all, tell me if my audio is too loud in comparison to Brett's, because I just got this, so I might need to turn it down. Sorry, I don't want to blow out anybody's ear. Um, I saw people saying though that it's not that uncommon for celebrities to fly commercial when apparently in that case it was during like Fashion Week and it was really hard to get around. I don't
I
know.
saw
Who knows?
Kanye flew commercial to France for Fashion Week. And now I know that that's a thing that he's done in the past is like a gag where he flies commercial. But if I'm flying commercial as a gag, it's not to France.
Uh, no.
No,
Huh?
no. If I can afford to fly private, right? I can afford to fly private, and I want to fly commercial just as a lark.
You'll
I'm
just go
doing it
from like
like
Dallas to
on a
Houston.
2-hour flight. I'm not doing it to Paris.
Well, that's true. That's a good point there. It's funny because I watched about J-Lo because I actually watched the documentary. I didn't watch the musical. So one of them was a musical about her romantic
Yeah.
past, and it wasn't just about. It was a lot about Affleck, but it was also about all these other guys.
Mhm.
But I watched the documentary about her romance, her. I watched the documentary about the making of this film, and then it
Yeah.
also got into her relationship with Affleck and others. And so that's where some of the clips that people have seen have come from of her talking, Affleck talking, her talking. And there's an interesting scene where she has gotten Jane Fonda to agree to be in the movie, but you can absolutely see that Jane Fonda thinks it's a horrible idea and is just doing it to be nice because, she and Jane Fonda, they did a movie together, Monster in Law, like
Mhm.
a decade or two ago. And so they became friends. And she wanted a bunch of celebrities in this movie to give it credibility. And so she begged a bunch of them. A bunch of them turned her down. This is all in the documentary, by the way. A bunch
Mhm.
of them turned her down, but Jane Fonda said yes. But there's this scene where Jane Fonda is talking to J Lo, and she says, "I really don't think that you need to put your romantic self out there like this." And J-Lo just kind of doesn't hear her, like bounces off her. And then later J-Lo is describing a character and she says, she's very into appearances and she promotes herself too much and blah blah blah. And Jane Fonda said, "Oh, so she's like you." And it just seems to like bounce off J-Lo. I don't know. But
Doesn't even register with her.
no, but it's
Well, I
really,
mean,
you get the
to
sense
be
that
a
Jane Fonda was trying to
yeah,
help her.
to be a celebrity, to get to that level of fame and stay relevant and all those things, I understand that it takes a certain level of like not listening to the naysayers.
It
right?
does,
Like
yes, we know
it
that.
does. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, at any level of success like that, you have to be able to brush past people who are telling you that certain things are a bad idea, because one of those ideas might be the one that hits it big for you. But it is interesting that it's like that. I did remember seeing the thing where like she published like Ben Affleck's letters to her, and Ben Affleck didn't want them published. So
She showed them to they covered this in this documentary too. She showed them to all of the dancers and all of the actors and everybody on the film as inspiration. Now, can you
yeah.
imagine the narcissism or the audacity or the delusion, self-delusion to think that people want to all these people working hard and trying to get through this film want to sit down and read through all of these banal love letters? I don't know. I don't know.
It's a
So I
superpower to know when you're not that interesting. It is.
Exactly, exactly, and to know that, like, people are not interested, they're kind of annoyed in your romance, but I think she just gets so wrapped up in it that she, wants to shout it to the world or whatever, so I
I'm just never going to forgive her for making that Netflix movie The Mother. That's the real reason she should be in
I
trouble with
never
the
saw
public.
that.
It's really bad. It's awful.
Um, yeah, so I don't know, I feel sorry for her, and I wish people would lay off her, but I guess you're right that she has very much brought this on
I
herself
mean,
with
it's part of living in the public eye,
It
right?
is,
Like
it is.
you could say the same for Ben Affleck having to become the face of the sad face meme. That's the life that he's courted by choosing to be, a public figure. That's just what it is.
It's true. It is. It absolutely is. Oh my God. So I wanted to ask you also, we covered this a little bit earlier, but do you think that Biden is going to step down or be forced down, or do you think this is going to be the candidate that we've got that's
He'll be
going
the
up against
candidate.
Trump? Yeah.
I think he'll. I mean, I don't pay as close attention as I used to, but I think that he'll be the candidate. I saw a lot of people point out that, like, look, they dragged Dianne Feinstein into the freaking halls to raise her hand one last time. Ruth Bader Ginsburg basically
Everybody's
keeled
rising
over.
from the dead.
They just keel over. Like, they would rather keel over dead than relinquish power. I don't see them getting rid of him anytime soon, even if it would probably be in their best interest. But I also find the more interesting point to be like, look, when I talk about the media's most powerful mode of attack, it's not what they say, it's what they choose not to say. They do more damage by not reporting on things than they ever do by what they choose to report on. So the best path forward to them would be to pretend like the debate didn't happen, focus on the things that Trump said, and just try to memory hole everything that went wrong at that debate. They're not doing that. That's interesting to me. Is that because political operatives in the DNC want to use the media as pressure to try to get Biden out? I just find it very interesting that, like, look, bad things happen every day. Stupid things are said by politicians every day. And the best thing that they can do, if they're a politically motivated, partisan person in the media, which a lot of them are, they win the most by not reporting on things. So just by choosing to talk about it, that says something.
They're talking about it a lot too.
Yeah, they
And
are.
because I see it lots of editorials in New York Times, the Washington Post, I mean just all over the place.
Mhm.
And leftist commentators and like I watch Sam Cedar's show, which I know y'all really love at Timcast. I find
I
him
have
really
no opinion. I
entertaining.
have
No,
no
I
opinion
know.
on it.
I know.
But
And
yes, but yes.
I find him and Emma really entertaining. And one of my viewers turned me on to them even before they started or they made fun of me or my appearance on Tim Pool. I was happy. I was really happy to see that my appearance on Tim's show actually
Yeah.
made it to Sam Cedar. But anyway, point is, I just see a ton of people on the left speaking up about Biden. So I
Yeah.
guess they really believe that they're going to lose if he's the candidate.
It is interesting. It really is, because I just wouldn't imagine that, like, they can fake away anything by just not talking about it. The memory hole is the best technique that they have to get things out of the press. And the fact that the regular press is talking about it all, it is also funny to hear people be like, we didn't see this coming.
Right. Right.
Who could
right.
have known? Okay.
Right.
Like, everyone knew. I mean, normies didn't know, but that's your fault. It's your fault for not doing your job as a mainstream press outlet and reporting on this 4 years ago. Or all the times where he wanders off a stage and he looks left and he looks right and he doesn't look like he knows what's going on. This could have been known ages ago.
Yeah, I get that. I think at the same time, and this, some of the people in my audience who are Biden supporters, I think this probably is kind of captures what you're feeling in a way. I think that there are a number of people though who, right or wrong, their impression of Trump was that is
Mhm,
that he's in his own way unhinged and kind of befuddled, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that this was the first time having them both on a stage. And
mhm,
I understand people on the left say, well, Trump was lying his ass off or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't even watching that closely,
mhm,
honestly, except except just to laugh at Biden occasionally. But that is the first time that you've had them both on stage. And it was very clear, even if you hate Trump or you're voting for
mhm,
Biden, I think it was very clear that there was one person who was having a much harder time just like
mhm,
getting coherent sentences out. And so when you have that, it really, I think it becomes something that people really can't quite deny.
mhm.
And one of the things that I said on my stream a few nights ago when I was talking about that debate and this election is that people people are most disdainful or afraid of weakness in a leader above all else. And
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of people, people can say, oh, Trump is a criminal or he's a bad guy or whatever people don't like about him. But he does exude a lot more strength
yeah.
and than Biden. And people have an affection in some ways for even criminality in this country. We love gangster films and things like that. So I
Well,
guess,
we could get into a whole debate on whether campaign finance fraud can be elevated to the
and
level
I'm
of
not
a
even
federal
saying that I think Trump
felony
is a
and all of
criminal
that
or
stuff.
anything. I'm not
And
yeah.
I again, like I said, I used to pay a lot closer attention to politics than I do these days. Frankly, I find it a lot more. It's probably better for my mental health to not pay as close of attention as I used to. But when I look at all of this stuff now, it is really interesting because, like, I was talking to like family members about this recently. We were talking about, like, I mean, my biggest issue right now has little to do with either leader and more to do with the massive amount of foreign spending that we're doing, giving money to other countries when we don't seem to be able to help what's going on here. To me, that should be a nonpartisan issue, right? Why are we giving money to Ukraine and Israel and Pakistan, to all these countries, right?
Right.
When we can't help the people in Hawaii after the wildfires. Here's $700, fix it yourself. Like, to me, until those questions can be sufficiently answered, I don't see it as a partisan issue because for the most part, you can have your cult of personality around whichever leader you like. Politicians are criminals and they're bad people 99 times out of 100. So if you want to bet on anyone but a politician and understand that, we're not going to get, it's not going to get much better because at its heart, most of what we see is a uniparty. And that seems to be the way it goes. I was trying to explain to somebody. I said the only thing more terrifying than a bill that can't pass is a bill that passes unanimously. Why are they suddenly agreeing on something, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So is end the pork barrel spending. All of the issues I have with American politics have very little to do with any one specific candidate and more to do with the actual bureaucratic rot that seems to fill our system now that's gone on for ages. Like when Trump talks about draining the swamp, I roll my eyes. I'm like, look, you could get rid of, say, best case scenario, you go in there and you clean house with top bureaucratic brass at the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, all these agencies. Those people all trained their successors, and everyone underneath them is part of the same cancerous system. So it's
Right.
like, and I know that's a black pilled way to look at it, but
No,
I see most
true.
of what it is as a lot of, basically, politics has become like pro wrestling. And I say you are more likely to be affected by your local governmental policy, and you're better off figuring out who your local representatives are and what's going on in your
That's
local
so
school
boring.
board
Everybody
meetings.
finds that so boring, Brett.
I know, but I'm just saying that that's the
No, I
more
know.
likely avenue if you want to change things in your life. Who are you voting for in your local elections? That's
Right.
the probably the path forward. But it's not, like you said, it's not as interesting. It's not as fun to talk about, but it is probably more detrimental to ignore your local stuff.
Well, it's like people
Yeah.
say, politics is the national pastime. So,
It's
have you
depressing.
have y'all
That's
covered
depressing.
RFK Jr. at all, or this last week of that Vanity Fair hit job article against
No, no,
him?
what happened? I mean, I the only the RFK coverage that I've seen has been through. I saw House and Habit cover
Mhm. She
RFK
does a
a
lot on
decent
him.
amount and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. See if okay, so actually that makes an interesting point. If there's anybody that should be covering politics, it's House and Habit.
Yes, she got a Wall Street Journal article like a couple of months ago, a write-up in the Wall Street Journal about her, and so I think she's becoming more and more of a force. Good,
She
good
is
on
one of the
her.
most dynamic voices in presenting ideas and culture to the public, right? Like her, you will get more of a sense of culture and place from her Instagram posts than you could from an entire article in a mainstream press,
Right,
in a mainstream
right.
press piece. She's
Well, RFK Jr. There's apparently like almost no one in his family, in the Kennedy family, wants him to have a political career, and I can't figure out if that's because they really don't. They really think that he's shady, or it's jealousy because he's the only one that has any kind of relevance anymore. But there was a hit piece in Vanity Fair with interviews with and opinions from various family members and accusations that Kennedy, when he was in Asia, he went to a festival and killed ate a dead dog that had been killed at this festival.
did
And there's
he?
a picture of him holding up some kind of barbecued animal that some people said was a goat and some people said might have been a dog. I don't know. But he denies it.
Of
And
course.
he said it's a goat or something, I think. He denies it,
Mhm,
and he put out a video on Instagram with him cooking steak for his dogs. His 2 dogs are sitting there, and he
mhm.
said that he's had to start cooking better meals for them because they're so pissed at him
Because
about
he ate
after
the
after
dog.
learning that he ate.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's the thing, though, right? Like, you take something that's unverifiable, like a photo,
Absolutely.
and you run with it. And it's kind of a toss up for me. Who do I hate more, politicians
Or
or
the
the
media.
mainstream press? They're usually pretty neck and neck. In this case, I would say that's, I'm more likely to believe that if somebody's made out to be like a comic book level villain, they're probably lying. But what do I know, right? Like, all that does to me is make me just say whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna let you, the press, win and get me angry over something that I can't know for sure. So no, you get no answer from me.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. So we have not talked about P. Diddy because
He sold his
because
mansion.
he
I
what?
saw he sold the mansion that got raided.
Did he?
$70 million.
Well, I mean, he might be in some financial difficulties and need to sell stuff because I'm sure that his business empire, like almost overnight, has
Yeah.
been destroyed, and he has, I'm sure, hefty legal bills. I saw where the he's being investigated by the government. Of course, we knew that because they raided his house. But I didn't. When last time we talked about him, all that I knew about it was the lawsuit by the
Yeah.
first woman, and I said that it could be credible, it might not, and we'll see because she was making very specific claims, and she was talking about in the lawsuit about like video footage and stuff, and so I
Well, there
thought,
was the
well,
video that
we'll
came out
see.
from the hotel,
Yeah,
right?
so that
Yeah.
when I saw that, I think when I saw that and everyone saw that, we were like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, case closed. Like, he may not necessarily have done all of the things that people are accusing him of, or who knows. But like, when you see somebody doing something like that, there's just
It's
no way to explain it.
Well, it's like, okay, look, I can take up the cause for innocent until proven guilty, and I can believe in due process, but I also have to allocate my time and my energy. And a video like that just kind of drains your desire to be like innocent until proven guilty on that thing, even
Exactly.
though we've got proof on this thing. Maybe he's innocent of that. I have no idea. I do know that I've got better things to do than to talk about it when I know that
Right.
this did happen.
Well, it was funny because when that came out, that video, I thought about you because you had said before that with these Me Too cases, unfortunately, we don't get videotape of the
Mhm.
actual acts being committed. And it's funny because I saw that, I thought of you and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
we actually have videotape. Eh,
The mythical Ring video camera everybody thinks is going to prove, it's every time a case comes out, they're like, this person did this. They're like, I'm going to wait for more evidence. I'm like, well, outside of testimonials from other people, are you expecting there to be just some magical camera shot of it? Because that's not going to happen, which is why
Apparently, yes.
well, yeah, in this case there was, but we tend to, like, whenever these cases come up, all you can really do is info dump and then unless you're willing to do deep dives, right? Like you do deep
No,
dives.
but I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It's like I look at your headlines for your Marilyn Manson stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of details and stuff, right? But
Yeah.
if what you're talking about is just what's in the daily news, I can give you the headlines and the case, but barring the mythical hotel video evidence that apparently does exist once in a while, I don't know what to make of it. I can say that maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but that's not exactly the most compelling video to make.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that he thought that he could behave that way in public and get away with it. But I guess for a long time people were, and he paid the hotel at the
Yeah.
time, what, $50,000. But he should have paid for them to destroy every copy. I guess that's the problem when you bribe somebody to destroy a tape, is they probably are holding on to one for
Yeah.
just the right
and
amount.
like $50,000 is not a whole lot. The dude's worth hundreds of millions of dollars,
Well, that's before
right? Like,
inflation, though, right?
yeah. Good
Everything's
point.
like double or triple.
$50,000 back in what year was this from? 2010 or something?
Now it won't buy you a cheeseburger.
No, it won't. No.
Oh my God. Well, I was thinking about celebrities that have divorced. Has anybody divorced? Oh, I wanted to ask you about. Do you care about Hugh Jackman and his wife? Did that make you sad at all when you
Are
heard?
they getting divorced?
Yeah, that was announced like 2 months ago or something.
That doesn't make me super. What would make me really sad is if Pierce Brosnan got divorced.
That would hit hard. That would hit hard. Well,
Because
that's the thing though. Hugh Jackman, a lot of people, because he's married to a woman also who, no offense, but is not as attractive as he is. And she is a bit older. They met when he was, I think, in his early 20s. They met on the set of a TV show, and she was the bigger actor at that point, had more of a reputation, may have even been one of the stars of the show. But anyway, and so she is some years older than him. And, she's not in Hollywood. She's not in the industry anymore. And so she looks a bit more of her age as well.
Yeah.
And so people had always looked at this as almost kind of an odd coupling, but like proof that, love can last even through Hollywood, because look at this hot guy, probably has all these women throwing themselves at him, but he's still with, his beloved wife, and they seemingly had a great relationship. That people thought of them the way that they think of Pierce and his wife. And so, yeah, they announced apparently no cheating, or no one's saying there's any cheating or anything, but they announced a couple of months ago that they're splitting. So people were sad.
He just wants to dance, man. He just wants to do his musical theater and dance, and that's the way it is. It would be sad if Brosnan did. If you want to go look for the place where marriages actually last, it's it's people who work in TV. There's plenty of actors who do. I mean, television is kind of the blue collar version of of like films and films and movies, right? Like a lot of them, they're always working. They have to keep working because they're not. If you're just working guest spots on shows, you're not getting royalties like you are if you're working on a show that's done over 100 episodes.
And
a lot of
these
these
crazy hours. They work crazy hours.
A lot of people who work in television have been married 20, 30 years. And I'm always really impressed by that. I was like, who was it? Chris O'Donnell.
Okay.
He stopped, like, I mean, it was his logic was that he quit doing movies because he didn't want to do the Playboy thing. He wanted to find a more stable life. So he went and did television so he could be home in LA close to his family and not have to be traveling to sets 6 months out of the year, which is why he went and did like NCIS Los Angeles. And if you want to talk about a money truck to back up, it's getting to do 13 seasons of a 22 episode procedural that goes into syndication.
That's getting into Mariska Hargitay territory there. That woman, I think that now I'm talking about the woman on Law and Order, for people who don't know.
Her and Ellen Pompeo are basically worth half of. They have the GDP of small countries.
Ellen Pompeo is milking the Grey's Anatomy train, is on that train until it dies. And then Mariska Hargitay on Law and Order SVU, which is continues to be a great show. Every now and then I'll still watch it, but she's been on that thing like, I don't know, like 20 years or more, maybe more. And she apparently makes $1 million an episode. It's gotten to that point, because basically she's been the star of it for so long that she is SVU, right? And so I think that is really an ideal career, except they work so many long hours on those TV shows.
Oh yeah, like
when they're in season, when they're on, they are working constantly.
I remember when Stephen Amell would talk about how, like, he was in, he's like basically looks like a Greek god, doesn't, could do American Ninja Warrior, but set days are 17 hours, right?
They
Physical
are.
jobs, right? Especially if you're the lead on that show, you don't get to work 10 hours a day. The moment it starts, the moment it ends. And they would always appreciate episodes that focused on other characters because they would have to work less than they do normally, right? But once you get in the groove for them, a lot of them, I imagine that for her, like once she stops working, she'll be like, what am I supposed to do with all my free time?
I'm sure after that many years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
So
you don't do a show like that for 20 years, build up a nest egg that size because you want more financial security. You probably just love to do the work.
well, yeah, and I think she even met her husband on that show too. He was a minor character on that show or an
Yeah.
extra or something. So, and they've been married a long time. It's a good Hollywood marriage. Yeah, you were talking about like the grueling nature of TV, and so Kevin Costner, I know he had to step away from Yellowstone because was he having some creative differences with Taylor Sheridan, but also he
Yeah.
wanted to do his epic 3-part
Horizon,
Horizon,
the
which is
3-hour
it's
movie.
bombing, isn't it? Is it
Yeah,
bombing in
well, I
theaters
mean, imagine expecting people to go to a 3-hour movie
these days?
these
See,
days.
I
In
love
this
long movies.
economy. I
No,
can't like look.
no,
The
way too
fastest
much.
way to get me away from a film is to tell me that it's 3 hours long. Like I made it through Oppenheimer, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Look, Christopher Nolan is a master at his craft. He can make like governmental meetings and like press conferences look interesting. 2 hours and 50 minutes." 3-hour movie most of the time, and I understand that Kevin Costner is an established director in his own right. That's fine. I'm just going to go watch Field of Dreams again.
Well, this is one that I'm going to check out definitely when it's available on streaming because I have seen the mixed reviews and I've seen the negative reviews of the Costner, the first movie, but also I see that it has a much higher audience approval. And so in
Well,
those situations, I don't know. Of course, it's Kevin Costner, but I'll give him a lot of leeway for trying to put some cool cinema up on the
yeah.
screen and trying to expand people's tolerance for time limits or for something taking a long time. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with that. Because here's the thing: people are saying this first one, the first one's done. It's in the theaters. It's not doing well. The second one, apparently, the second and third ones are still in production, or
I
maybe
think the
the
second
second
one
one's
was
finished.
also done. I think the second one's also done.
So the third is in production, and apparently he also had a desire to make a fourth. And so people are saying that if these first two don't
Who does
do
he think
well,
he is? James Cameron with Avatar?
a fourth 3-hour movie. He just should have made. People are saying he just should have made a streaming show,
Yeah.
and then people would have had a lot more patience for it, and they can watch it at home instead of going to the theater, for 3 hours in a comfortable seat or whatever. So I don't know, but he definitely swung for the. Speaking of Field of Dreams, swung for the fences on
Yes.
that.
Look, I am one of those people. I understand that maybe it's a product of being addicted and I don't have the attention span that I used to, but I despise turning on a streaming show and seeing like a 70-minute episode. Fuck you. Fuck you for thinking I have that much free time. Okay? I
17
don't.
minutes.
I don't have 8 episodes, 70 minutes apiece. We're reviewing The Acolyte right now, and it's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. But at least the episodes are like 30 minutes long, in and out, no problem. The mess is kept to a minimum. Like one of the reasons Reacher was so good is they kept to like, despite the fact that it's a streaming show, it's formatted like a regular network television show, meaning the episodes are about 42 to 44 minutes long, which is about what an hour-long drama is when you add commercials.
Right.
Like imagine the hubris of believing that the paying customer want to sit there for 19 hours to watch your streaming show that has no editors because apparently they don't know how to cut anything anymore. That's what Hollywood is missing. Editors who know how to tell you when you're just being overly verbose and not cutting dialogue or shit that doesn't that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. At the same time, though, if I'm really into a show, if I'm liking it, if I'm really into it, then I have no problem sitting there for a really long time. So I do think it depends. The
The funny
Acolyte's
thing
really
is,
bad, though, huh?
yeah, it
People are
is.
freaking out about how bad it is, right?
The funny thing about you mentioning Yellowstone is I've still only seen like a couple episodes of Yellowstone, I think in total over a couple of seasons.
Me too.
I've seen all of 1883 and all of 1923, which I enjoyed.
I liked both of those. I've seen half of 1923. Couldn't finish it. It wasn't because I didn't like it. Look, I say this. 1883 I loved until, to
Yeah,
me, it seemed to get silly about two-thirds of the way through when she started. No spoilers, but one of the main characters started having like all of these different relationships. It felt like some kind of like a young adult then Western or
yeah.
something with like it's too much romance. And then I just felt like things got a little bit cliched at certain points, but it had a lot of gripping moments. That was definitely good. I've only watched a couple of
Casting
episodes of Yellowstone.
casting Tim McGraw and Faith Hill
Yeah,
is
they were good.
genius.
Yeah, no, they were good.
Guys, if you're looking for Taylor Sheridan recommendations, skip all that and just go watch Sicario, and then watch it again, and then watch Sicario
Sicario is really
2,
good.
which isn't as good as the first one, but still really good.
Sicario is really good. I will
Yes.
agree with you on that.
Watch it just for the border crossing scene alone. It's amazing.
And the music, I can't remember who did the music on it.
Mm.
The music's really, really
That's
good too.
there's a fantastic example of the grays, the gray area of law enforcement and the drug war and all that stuff. Is that movie?
Absolutely. So everybody, on my channel, as you know, we take breaks. So 10 minutes, 10, no, 9, 10 Eastern, 10 minutes. We will be back and we will give you another hour because, yeah, Ethan Ralph has postponed till tomorrow.
Whenever I see these things, I'm like, I'm so glad I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think either of us are actually truly offended. I think it's just a circus that is going to make an interesting, perhaps disastrous show tomorrow night. But we will see. We will see. It's interesting to go from you. Somebody asked, "Who are you streaming with tonight?" And I said, "Brett," and they said, "Was he nice?" And I said, "Yeah, he's always nice." To go from you to what's possibly going to be happening tomorrow.
You
But
don't
anyway.
come to me for hot takes, that is for sure.
Well, I was gonna say, don't come to you to like wrestle in the mud, which I think might be what happens tomorrow night to a certain degree. But anyway, all right, everybody, we'll be back in 10 minutes, and we're gonna do another hour. All right,
10 minutes.
all right. Back in All right, I'm gonna come back since you're there, Brett. Bring us back. Hello, everybody. All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so one reason I wanted to take a bit of a longer break is to pull up something that I wanted to ask y'all about. This is so petty, okay? You probably didn't talk about this in Pop Culture Crisis. Did you talk about Susan Sarandon's daughter's wedding dress?
No. Oh, wait, no. I don't, what was it? I mean, we were going to talk about Olivia Culpo tomorrow.
So I was just going to say there are two wedding dresses, celebrity wedding dresses, that have been in the news the last 2 weeks for basically two sides of the same coin. All right. So Olivia Culpo, you want to let people know what's going on there?
Oh, Mary knows more about it than I do. She's apparently some famous model
Former Miss Universe.
Former Miss Universe who used to date Tim Tebow and now is marrying another dude and wore a modest wedding dress and then
exactly.
And then a not modest wedding dress at the reception. I didn't even know women wore more than one dress on their wedding day. I learn new things every time we talk about stuff like this, but I would not be the person to ask for strong opinions on wedding dresses.
So the audience, the audience can tell me what they think. I don't have much of an opinion on Olivia Culpo, but I do on Susan Sarandon's daughter for different reasons. But let's start with Olivia Culpo because I want people to see this.
Oh, I did see your comment about Susan Sarandon's.
Yeah,
I saw. I mean, you had about the most. Your take on it was about the most like moderate. It's like, why would you want your friends and family to look at your titties hanging out?
Well, so exactly. So let's start with Olivia Culpo because I can't get this to go away. Just a second. I'm horrible with this kind of stuff. Sorry. So this was her wedding dress, and it was I think it's stylish. I like it. Mary probably agrees with me, but it is extremely modest. And the thing is, Olivia Culpo, she made a point of bragging about her modesty, which then makes it seem kind of strange when you tell me that she was wearing something really
modesty for clout,
lascivious elsewhere. But this is her wedding dress, and it just is a sort of a normal long train.
I think Mary said that the neckline is horrible.
Well, Olivia Culpo talked about in an Instagram post or something about how or maybe it was the People magazine article. So People magazine paid, as these tabloids do, they paid to get the first shots of this wedding, and she married AJ McCarron, right, of a big quarterback of some football team. But anyway,
is it McCaffrey or something?
Oh no, is it McCaffrey?
Like, who took this photo and why do they have the light fixture behind her?
She looks like a queen, angelic.
Was that if it was supposed to be on purpose, then they didn't frame it correctly because it should be more centered than that if it was on purpose.
No, you're right. It is off centered. What's going on there? But I think it was on purpose. But whoever she married, whatever football player she married, she was bragging about this dress and how it was very modest, and she didn't want to show anything at her wedding, right?
Except for at the reception.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I didn't know she wore something that was less modest at the reception. But anyway, so
look up the pictures of her reception outfit, and then be like, what was the point? I guess the point is to not denigrate the church, but the reception dress is far from modest.
Is it this?
Yeah.
This weird thing? What is going on there? Wait a second.
It doesn't look comfortable.
You know, I don't even think that she's trying, as crazy as this might sound, I don't even think she was trying to be sexy with that. I think she was trying to do something like really sort of like modern art or something. I don't know, like to make some kind of a statement. But I will agree with you. It definitely is not modest like the last dress. So she got some shit for the wedding dress from some influencers on TikTok who were talking about how ridiculous it looked.
You should dress like a whore at your wedding in the name of equality.
So, which brings me to Susan Sarandon's daughter. And I was complaining about this on Instagram. Okay, so this was Susan Sarandon's. Let me make it go away. So this is Susan Sarandon's daughter's wedding dress, and she posted this to Instagram. Her name's Ava Amuri, so I don't know why her last name is, but anyway, her dad or something. But she posted this to Instagram, and she was saying, it was a beautiful wedding and everything. And then at the end, she said, and to those of you who are complaining about my boobs, just make here's a screenshot for you. And so then she put a picture in of just her chest in this screenshotted. And then she followed up with another social media post, also clapping back at the haters of this dress, clapping back and saying, "Oh, by the way, my tits were out at my reception too." And she showed a picture of that. It was low cut, although I thought
Mhm.
it was more modest, but low cut. And then she also made sure to tell us that her husband, this man pictured here, whom she described as a tall drink of water. Is that a way to describe handsome men? I've never heard that before, but a tall drink of water. She said, by the way, he fucking loves my tits. Well, she didn't say tits, but he fucking loves these dresses.
Yeah.
And then she had all these different emojis signifying like hot or sex or what, I don't know, whatever.
I think the point is supposed to be that maybe he should appreciate them in private.
So here's my deal. Okay. And this is going to be like my Clint Eastwood, I guess, old man, get off my lawn
Get
rant.
off
But
my lawn.
I have absolutely no issue with nudity or female nudity or even a display of
Yeah.
some degree of sexuality in public. But here's the thing about a wedding. I do get annoyed as hell when brides wear this kind of stuff to their wedding because here's the thing, like, it gives people a physical biological reaction when they see this. Maybe not everybody, but a number of men are going to who are at this wedding, they see this and they get hard-ons. I don't know how else to say it. And more women than you would think also looking at this, and not just gay women, but more women than you would think looking at this, it causes some kind of response. Now, what happens is it kind of makes people uncomfortable, I think. And I can only imagine being at the wedding and you're talking to this couple in person and you're having to tell yourself, don't look at her chest, don't look at her chest, don't look at her chest. Like, it's awkward. And then, you're going to have like a lot of old people there too.
Mhm.
And some of them are going to be, maybe not scandalized, but some of them are going to be uncomfortable. I guess this is my question, y'all. I don't understand why people would want to sexualize their wedding or sexualize themselves to that degree on their wedding. Am I just being
It's
prudish?
No, I think what it is we live in an age now where I made this comment in the show today, and I'm being a bit hyperbolic when I say that to the modern, not even liberal woman, but to the modern progressive woman, everything is an attack on womanhood, and their rights are constantly being stripped. So they have to clap back against every institutional norm there is, not because there's any real logic behind it, but just because they feel like it's their way of pushing back against a system that they feel is trying to harm them, right? So even though you could probably come up with 10 good reasons why a little bit of modesty at your wedding might be a good idea, what they will tell you is that, well, the patriarchy told me to dress modest at my wedding, and I have been reliably informed that the patriarchy is bad. Now, whatever your thoughts on that are, that's fine, but I don't know if that much logical thought is actually being put into the choice to wear a wedding dress like this. The bigger fault here is that if the husband did have a problem with it, it's his fault for not standing up for himself and saying that he does, right? So
And I don't think actually that the husband did have a problem with it because
no,
they're
it's
they're Hollywood
yeah,
people and whatever, and this isn't
yeah,
like in that context. I'm sure it's no big deal to anyone. And I mean, and she does have a great rack. I'm not denying that. It's not, but it's not like us small chested ladies being jealous here. I think that if you're going to go to a club, or even if you're going to go to a ball, if you're going to go to the Oscars, if you're going to go, like, there's lots of places where I'm totally okay with women showing a ton of cleavage. But I've just always felt like at the wedding, I felt this way with Sofia Vergara too, when she married Joe Manganiello, or how you say his name.
they got
And
divorced, right?
I know
Just
they did.
another wedding failed.
But she looked beautiful, but her wedding dress was definitely all about showing off her tits. And so to me, I just don't get it, because even if I had like the most amazing, rack or whatever, like, that is just not for me personally the context that I would want to be highlighting it, because that people are going to be mostly looking at that or trying not to look at it. It's just human nature. And even if they're not getting turned on by it, it's just like, you don't see that often, particularly at weddings. So people are going to look, or they're going to have to look away or whatever. And I just think, like, is that the kind of energy that you're wanting?
Every time the priest turns to her, he makes hard eye contact, like the hardest eye contact you've ever seen somebody make with another person in their life, because he's trying to make sure he looks And the reason why men get annoyed by this stuff, right, is they're like, why are you looking there?
Right.
Why are
Right.
you looking there?
My
It's like,
eyes are
well,
here. My
yeah,
eyes are here.
yeah. And it's just like, bruh, what do you
I could take the picture down, but I kind of feel like maybe people would rather honestly look at that than.
it's just funny to me because I just don't see any logic behind any of this stuff. And your explanation makes perfect sense. It's like, why do your grandparents have to look at that?
I mean, and who wants their grandparents looking at that? That's the
Exactly.
thing. It's like it would make me feel awkward as a woman. I mean, I'm totally fine on certain occasions showing, the little cleavage that I have, or even at times I'll wear stuff on my live stream that's not low cut, but that's shows a little
Mhm.
something. But again, like it's your wedding, and it's not like your husband's not going to see that shit, or hasn't already. I'm sure
Like
seen it, or is going to
my
see it.
favorite part is going to be like one day they're going to have kids and they're going to be like, watch our wedding video, guys, and then the kids are going to see the wedding video. Like,
She
why
already
is?
has kids. That's the other awkward thing. Is that she's got like a son, I think. I don't know. I mean, we're
Okay.
getting into then like Freudian territory with stuff, but I would think there would be some awkwardness attached with that.
Yep.
And so anyway, I don't know, but I was just like, huh. But it did remind me then of this. Let me see if I can. I'm going to call it up on my Instagram. 1 second. Oh, hold on. I'm going to take this off. Hold on 1 second. So there's this famous picture. I don't think it's on my Instagram now that I think about it, but there's this famous picture of this wedding where this woman had like the most ridiculous dress I've ever seen. Let me see if I can find it. I'm
Okay.
putting in slutty wedding dress. Slutty wedding dress.
That's what that lady did when she looked up her dress for the wedding. She's like, slutty wedding dress, please.
Well, and it's probably not going to come up because I had to look for it earlier. I should have been prepared with it, but
Who was it?
it was just some random person. This was a random photo taken at a wedding, and she. Yeah, no, I don't see it. I'll have to describe it, but basically imagine this. Imagine someone is topless, a woman is topless, but there are and it's a princess dress from the waist down. So a princess dress, but basically topless with just like a little bit of fabric barely covering the nipples. And then
Okay.
everything else like basically it was like you could just see all of her breasts.
Mhm.
And I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine. Let me see if I put it on Twitter. I'm sorry, I've
That's
got to
because
find
the
it.
patriarchal system of old white men have been telling you for generations that you shouldn't wear stuff like that. So you have to do that on your wedding day
Oh,
to
here it
stick
is.
it to the man.
I found it. I found it. Okay, let me get it. Let me get it right, y'all. Seriously, if you haven't seen this, like I don't know what was going on here. Here we go. Dun dun dun. That's a real photo. That is it. Y'all are gonna have to show this when you talk about Livia Culpo. But
Uh,
just put in it's
is
slutty.
she
What?
fat? Is she fat?
Well, I think she just has big boobs. Everything else looks okay. But
No, I'm saying, but she's wearing like it's like puffy and nondescript everywhere else. That's all
well,
I'm saying.
I mean, I hadn't thought of that. That could definitely be the strategy that's being employed there. But people are saying I
Lady,
might
if
get a
you're
YouTube
fat,
strike.
just tell us. It's fine. You don't have to debase yourself on your wedding day. Just tell everyone you're fat. That's okay.
But I think about like her husband standing there with her, even if he thinks like I love my wife, she's sexy as hell, whatever. But like he can't totally like not be embarrassed to some degree by this.
A
Like,
little, he's got to be a little bit embarrassed, right? And
oh
that's
my
on the
god.
men for not being willing to stand up for themselves because they're afraid of being called controlling and manipulative, right? Because that's what that will happen. What will happen? He'll be like, "Honey, I don't think you need to wear the slutty wedding dress with the boob window," and she will post a picture of The Handmaid's Tale and talk about how society is doing everything in their power to prevent women from being able to live their lives.
And I know that like there's a point at which everything becomes too extreme, and so like no, nobody wants to go back to like a super super traditional time where women have to feel like embarrassed about
Mhm.
about going to the beach or about
Time and
dressing
a
more
place for
seductively.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. But or like people say, well, do you want like a veil, or do you want to live in Iran, or do you want to like have burqas and stuff? Like, no, obviously not.
Could
But
we find a middle ground?
well,
That's all I'm asking.
this is the other thing, and then I'll get off the uncomfortable sexual subjects. But I notice among feminists too, and particularly when it comes to also the issue of motherhood, that
Mhm.
feminists like to deny that breasts have a sexual effect on people. And so like when it comes to breastfeeding, like I totally think that women should be able to breastfeed in public and they shouldn't be shamed and we should all just avert our eyes or whatever and deal with it. But let's not pretend that there's not something that's a little bit jarring about seeing the tits come out, even if it's to feed a child. Like, I'm not going to make anybody feel bad, but like there are people who like to say, well, that's what they're for. They're not for sex objects. They're there to
Yeah.
feed children. What's wrong with you? You know, pervert. And it's like, come on.
I love the meme that says like anything happens, French women, and it shows them ripping their clothes off to protest, right? And that's kind of what it is, right? Is the second it became a political discussion, then that whole discussion goes out the window, right? Because it's no longer about whether it's natural or whether it's sexual. Now it's I'm going to do it to spite the people who say I shouldn't.
Right. No, it's true. And yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to say about Susan Sarandon's daughter's wedding, and I did post this on Twitter, so let me find it really quick. But she was roasting some kind of animal for their wedding, I guess, banquet, and
Okay.
I thought this was the most bizarre thing. Okay, yeah, I found it here. Let me put it up. I don't know what these animals are. I posted this on Twitter and Instagram, and I said it reminded me of some kind of like an omen wedding, like some kind of satanic
Yeah.
film. What is going on there? I'll make it a little bigger, but like, what is that?
That's creepy. I mean, just I guess the imagery alone of like the dark skies and the against the white dress, it definitely looks like something that's going to be that's going to say in the fall of 2024.
Well, and it looks like with that device that they're cooking it over, whatever that is, like it has almost a kind of like weird like satanic movie aesthetic or something. I don't know. The whole thing just looks like there's some kind of Illuminati sacrifice that's going to happen at the end of the wedding. But y'all, seriously, like what is this? Because some people were saying it was duck. I don't think those are duck. I don't know what that is. It looks like babies, and surely it's not what it is. But like
seriously, it looks like babies.
And then some people were saying hedgehogs. I don't know. But
she's
like,
roasting Sonic. That's not good. Leave Sonic alone.
And I love how this promotional video was apparently taken by someone wanting to celebrate this moment. And so they've got her, I guess, walking down the aisle or walking to the aisle in front of this. Like, it's just so jarring. You've got like you've got the boobs on the one hand, and then you've got the roasting dead babies on the other. Like, I just don't know what's going on at this wedding. It's Hollywood. Did y'all talk about the celebrity stylist at Gwyneth Paltrow's who had an attack of diarrhea and fled?
What? No. Gwyneth Paltrow is one of my favorite celebrities. Like, remember when we were talking about J-Lo?
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow is how you do disconnected from reality and inaccessible due to wealth. That's the way you do it.
That is absolutely true. Well, so apparently this there's this guy named Derek Blasberg who is a celebrity fashion journalist. So he's worked for like Vogue and stuff like that, and you know, has become really, as these Vogue people do, has become really enmeshed in the celebrity scene, right? So apparently he was one of the guests several weeks ago at Gwyneth Paltrow's home in where is it they all like to go in New York, by the beach?
The Hamptons?
Yeah, the Hamptons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's at her home and apparently had an attack of Ozempic-induced diarrhea. And
hate it when that happens.
And the story is that he fled. Apparently, Gwyneth Paltrow told this story to several of her friends, and that's how it got out.
Which is evil to begin with, that this would become like a public story.
Well, apparently he fled, so maybe she was like really pissed. Like, he didn't apparently try to clean it up or whatever, and he fled. And someone discovered it, and so Gwyneth Paltrow, or I guess one of Gwyneth Paltrow's maids, had to clean it up.
I suppose the logic could be is that if he had taken his Ozempic diarrhea like a man and cleaned it up himself, then maybe she wouldn't have felt the need to broadcast this story to the whole world. But since he couldn't do that, she felt clear in turning him into tabloid fodder.
Well, and even on his Instagram page, he had posted some stuff on Instagram, and there were people like blue checkmarked, like sort of celebrity people who were posting like diarrhea signs or something. I don't even know. Is there? I guess there is a poop sign, right? An emoji. So they were posting like diarrhea or poop emojis, and so
Look, and all the celebrities should be careful with what they say, because this could happen to them because they're all on Ozempic anyways.
Yeah, I hear different things about Ozempic. I hear some people say that they're fine, not many side effects, and of course, it's a
Yeah.
miracle drug for people trying to lose weight. But then I hear other people, and I read about other people saying it have all these horrible side effects, and you're nauseated, your stomach hurts, and you have this issue. So I don't know, but there are a lot of people on it. That is for sure. Like
I
everybody in
just
Hollywood.
I literally just posted a picture, like just me trying to not be a disgusting fat piece of shit. Lay's potato chips, and they release a new type of potato chip every week that I then have to try. And I'm like, look, I'm just over here not trying to be a fat slob, and the potato chip companies are out here just making my life more difficult. But at least I'm not taking Ozempic.
Well, we definitely have like tons of unhealthy food. I think people like generations from now are going to look back, and particularly in America, and I'm sure you've heard this, but when people go to Europe, like on vacation,
Mhm.
like they feel better, they lose weight and stuff because we have so much more poison in our food apparently than Europeans, and a lot of their food is just so fresh because, it's like fish from the sea or whatever, right? Like I felt like when I went to Europe years ago, like there was a lot more that was quote unquote, farm to table or sea to
Lot
table
of
or whatever.
preservatives in our food and everything. You just look at
Preservatives.
the ingredient lists and all of that. Though I can't bring myself to care, because there's nothing I find more annoying than health nuts on Twitter and on Instagram
It's true.
talking about nourishing your body and eating yummy food. And as far as I'm concerned, the people who use the word nourishing before they go on some rant about the preservatives in our food, the word should be banned. So I'm going to eat unhealthy just to spite them.
That sounds like a good plan there. Certainly not cutting off the nose to spite your
Nope,
face.
not at all.
So I just saw for all of my Johnny Depp fans and Amber Heard haters that there's a new exclusive just posted to the Daily Mail. It said Amber Heard's private investigator reveals his shock over unwavering support for Johnny Depp after being hired to dig up dirt. Oh, this is an old story. Why is this being
Wow.
recycled again? That's the Daily Mail is such crap. I was getting
Speaking
excited
of
there for a second.
speaking of fleeing after diarrhea incidents,
Except Amber Heard's was intentional.
that's exactly true.
Oh man. So I was looking for some other things in the news lately, and
It's actually really funny that you mentioned her, because I just recently watched an
Amber.
old episode of Criminal Minds that she was in. Well,
Oh,
she plays a like an up and coming actress who's being stalked by someone.
Criminal
Uh
Minds. When
yeah,
was it?
yeah.
Like early 2000s?
First season, so 2002 probably, maybe a little bit after that.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with
2005.
her in the years to come because she had a couple of movies, like sort of like
Mhm.
minor independent films that came out. A couple of those right after the trial, and then she had like her 10 minutes on Aquaman 2. Did you see Aquaman 2?
Yep.
So
Yeah,
was she was not in
you
it much.
could tell that they were editing around her not being in the movie. Like, she's there and then she's gone for like 3/4 of the movie, and then she shows up in the last 10 minutes.
She's there for like 10 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I heard too. So I want to ask you, oh, here's a good one. Where are you on Brad Pitt? Because I think that I have surprised people lately with what I feel about Brad Pitt. And I do believe that, yes, I do believe that Angelina Jolie is probably cuckoo and it was toxic,
Mhm.
mutually toxic relationship in a lot of ways. But I do think that he did that shit on that plane
Mhm.
and was in and was abusive when he was in these blackout phases of his alcoholism. So I actually do think that he was abusive at times with those kids and with her.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on any of that?
I'm still going to watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Okay. I'm still going to watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And I'll tell you what, guys, the trailer for F1 was awesome. So
I'm agreeing with you on those because I don't think that we should cancel celebrities or cancel artists or celebrities or whatever you want to say for things that they do in their private
I mean,
life.
I
I don't
can't
believe
know if
that.
he did those things. I mean, I know
Right,
what you're
exactly.
saying, but it's like I can't know for sure,
No.
and I don't really operate under the premise of judging the moral character of most of these performers, because I don't know who they are in real life, anyways, and that's not the relationship I have with them. It's more the more important question, I suppose, would be is what are the moral judgments being made by the people closest to him, and I suppose his kids are saying they're changing their last name and they're They're not being involved with them, and does that indicate guilt or innocence? I mean, I guess it makes some sort of indication one way or the other, but it's not the relationship that I'm destined to have with him. My relationship with Brad Pitt is whether I'm going to rewatch Fight Club or whether Mr. and Mrs. Smith is still a fantastic movie, and I still love Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So I know that plane ride will probably have books written about it in the future.
Well, I definitely agree we shouldn't cancel artists, and I don't even think Amber Heard should be canceled. I really don't. It's not that,
That
I mean, we shouldn't be forcing or encouring people to
is
go
that
to her
Angelina
movies, but
Jolie in that picture?
it's an old picture
That's
of
a
them, obviously.
crazy picture of her. It's it looks like her, but not really.
Well, her looks, like a lot of people's have changed over the years as she's gotten plastic surgery.
Look, she's still. It's really funny
Beautiful
because
woman.
she's one of those actresses where it's like when we went and saw The Eternals, which was an awful movie, like you could tell just how much more charisma she was blessed with from birth than everyone else in that movie. That even in this horrible movie
Is that
with
saying much?
horrible,
No,
I mean,
what you
I
mean.
think in a
I
lot of
know.
ways it is, right? Like she's elevated, like she's been part of a lot of pulp movies that I really, really love. Like I will never make apologies for loving the first Tomb Raider movie. I will not. But also movies like Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage and stuff like that. And I think about all of the roles that she had growing up. Or Hackers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked her a lot in Gia, that HBO movie
Yeah.
about Gia Karanji who had this crazy tragic life. I know I think they're both excellent actors and they're both stars, and I don't think either of them should have to go away. But the thing with Brad Pitt, I originally, because I'm oriented toward presumption of innocence, I originally was skeptical, and I read a biography of her years ago that made her sound crazy or personality
Mhm.
disordered herself. But I do think that what has come out in some of those court documents is that the government investigated this incident on the plane, and
Because it was an
there were
FAA thing.
witnesses. I mean, there were witnesses to this outside of the family, and
Yeah.
also like there were people in the government who wanted to press charges against Brad Pitt, and they almost did. But Angelina Jolie at that point did not want to press charges. She didn't think it was productive, and obviously, for obvious reasons, there were people who were also reluctant in the government to do that, particularly without Jolie's support. And so it died, so to speak. But I think that to me, there's something going on there with him.
Yeah.
And he did an interview. I've talked about this before, but he did an interview after their split, not their divorce, because that's been ongoing, but right after their split was made public. And I think it was Esquire. And he did not come out and admit to being abusive, but the way that the interview read, this was someone who had to quit drinking because he seriously fucked up
Yeah.
due to alcoholism, like seriously fucked up. And that was very much the tone of the article, the interview, and what he was saying. And I got the sense from that whatever Jolie might have done also that's negative or toxic, that he really did hit bottom with all of that.
Yeah.
Now with the kids, I know that several kids have changed their names, and then apparently you might have seen this also. A couple of years ago, Pax, one of his sons, his adoptive sons, posted on his private Instagram on Father's Day a message, and it was apparently verified that it was his Instagram, but it was talking about, "Oh, happy Father's Day, asshole. Your children tremble in fear and hate you or afraid of you or whatever." And it was clearly describing an abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
The only pause that I have about that stuff is that I do understand also that parental alienation is a thing, and that it is not uncommon for fathers to be alienated by the mothers or vice versa. But whenever there are these family dynamics and people split, there is often alienation of one parent that's unfair. And so I'm not saying that that's not, it's certainly not impossible. And of course, when you look at Angelina Jolie's family history, there's an interesting cycle, unfortunately, that does seem to be repeating itself where, when her parents, John Voight and her mother, when they split, when John Voight left them, I think for another woman, but when he left them, and he was not an abusive parent, and that's never been claimed, nothing like that's ever come out. But when he left them, the mother then was so bitter and angry, not only because he had left them, but also because she felt like she had missed her opportunity to be a Hollywood wife, because she was an actress, but she was not successful at all. And so she had a taste of this big Hollywood life
Life, yeah.
for a couple of years or whatever, and then he leaves, and she's just kind of left with what to do. And so apparently, growing up, she really alienated the kids, Angelina and her brother, against John Voight, and extended into adulthood. And then I think that eventually they mended fences. But so, when you see something like that happening in someone's background, and
Yeah.
then you see it happening in their own life, it does make you pause. But I don't know, I'm inclined to think that Brad Pitt did fuck up there.
Yeah, it's you know what this means, right? Billy Bob Thornton can make his way back into her life, and we can get Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton too.
Maybe they were meant to be together all along.
I make that joke about a lot of them. I'm like, look, you know what this means about J Lo and Ben is that Jennifer Garner and Ben can get back together and live happily ever
Oh
after.
Lord, I think Jennifer is so over. But yeah, I get your joke. I think Jennifer Garner is so over that. She's got her much more stable CEO man. So
Yeah.
he founded a bunch of companies, but he's really low key apparently. And they've been together for years, but they just haven't gotten the press attention that J Lo and Ben Affleck have. I wonder
Yeah,
why.
because she's not going out and commissioning
Exactly.
movies about it. She's not going
Exactly.
out and asking her friends to be in the movie with them.
Billy Bob and Angelina, this was their infamous Oscars appearance where he talked about how they had each other's blood in vials and they had just, quote, fucked in the car on the way here. And of course, if you remember this moment, this interview, Billy Bob Thornton is laughing and talking about this, and Angelina Jolie's not even looking at the camera. She's just all over him. They definitely had. Good.
Like now we've got MGK and Megan Fox doing blood vials, and it's like you did it 10 years late. 15,
Exactly. It's not
20
cool.
years late.
It's not cool
20
anymore.
years late.
What is going on with them? They've split, right?
I think they're still together.
Oh, really? Because I thought that, well, they definitely called off the engagement, right? Or you think that's...
I think that they ended up back together or something, or maybe she realized that he's kind of a dork. Also, I saw somebody in the chat mention Bullet Train. If you're looking for a good recent Brad Pitt movie, yes, Bullet Train was really, really good, and everyone should go watch it.
I need to check it out. I haven't watched it. So.
Bullet Train is good.
So okay, cool. There's just so much stuff now. It's so hard to keep up with.
So one thing that's interesting about Angelina Jolie is I think that she was one of those early adopters of something that's looked at very differently now, which is adopting children from other countries, right? Mm-hmm. That whole practice is looked upon very differently now than it was 20 years ago.
You mean with more skepticism now?
Yes, I think it is. I don't think it's looked at as the benevolent act that it used to be looked at as.
And not necessarily a critique of Angelina Jolie or what she's doing, but just that in general, there have been more problems than people have realized associated with adoption and and big families, adopted families.
And a lot of people tend to think that celebrities use their children as, as basically tools. As something to just props to show the camera, right? I mean, we got into that today because we were talking about Naomi Watts having a trans son and all of this stuff and all of these things. And it feels increasingly that as motherhood is denigrated in society, they have to find a way to make it socially acceptable within progressive Hollywood circles. And the way to do that often is Munchausen by proxy.
Well, people have talked a lot about how many, I was trying to find, you said Naomi Watts, right? Yeah. How many celebrities have trans kids now? Either they're well along in a transition or they're just more gender fluid and presenting as opposite sex.
Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, Megan Fox, at one point, I think all 3 kids were trans.
And I mean, even...
And we all know that the statistical odds of that are impossible.
Right. I get some criticism from some people in my audience who think that I'm too critical of the trans movement. You probably don't deal with that from the nature of your show, and it's more, I think, a bit more to a right-leaning audience. But I get that at times. And here's the thing that I'll always keep saying. In my own way, I am non-gender conforming at times. I mean, right now, not necessarily so, but in a lot of ways, I'm non-gender conforming and don't want to have kids, not into girly things in particular. And there's just lots of stuff, right? In ways that I'm not. And I support people's right to present, to dress how they want to dress and present themselves how they want to present themselves. And even if they're adults, to get surgeries and to get medical treatments. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like I think libertarian sense people should be able to do drugs or all kinds of stuff, right? Or get plastic surgery to look younger, what
Yeah.
have you. But the modern trans movement, politically, it's become really, I think, dangerous and even oppressive in a lot of ways. First of all, because so many people are being encouraged to do this, and they're not being told that there are significant downsides, as we
Yeah.
know, to medical downsides, social downsides. I mean, a lot of people, once they try this, they end up regretting it. And so I don't agree with all the propaganda that's out there being sold to, and I don't agree with what's being done to a number of kids. And then, the other thing is, I don't agree that we should be able to dictate to other people how they should see reality, or how
What?
they, or how they, or that we should deny something that's right in front of our face. And so, most of the time when I've been around trans people, most of them have not pulled it off well enough, no offense, but they haven't, to where I am not immediately aware that I'm talking to a man or a woman, as opposed
Yeah.
to what they're trying to present. Now, I understand there are some people who they can get such sophisticated surgeries and get all the waxing and this and that done, and they have maybe more feminine faces and bodies, or masculine, and so they can pull it off. People talk about, like, who's the big YouTuber? Blair, right? Blair
Blair
White.
White.
I mean,
Yep.
Blair White looks like a woman.
Mm.
But I really resent the fact that we are told that we have to pretend that there is not a biological reality here. And to me, that's when it becomes oppressive, is when people are trying to force they're demanding that we see something that we don't actually see, or hear something that we don't actually hear.
When it comes to adults, I'm as live and let live as anybody. I'm pretty left leaning on most of that stuff. I'm socially very liberal when it comes to adults. When it comes to kids, I think that common sense tells you that the path we've been traveling down is not the right one.
Mm-hmm.
I've argued with people about the idea of the emotional bludgeoning that happens when doctors tell their parents, do you want a dead son or a living daughter, or vice versa?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, how is that not mental illness? If not, then what is it? Like, if that's the logical argument and that's the truth behind the matter for you, I don't know what you want me to make of that other than that. But when it comes to adults, it's not my business, not my money, not my genitals. Just
Right.
leave me out of it. But do not try to enforce speech on me, or tell me about the realities of biology and things like that. I don't have the time or the energy to expend on it. But leave kids out of it. I don't think that's an irrational position.
I totally agree. And one thing I wanted to mention is that occasionally, because I cover the Marilyn Manson stuff so much, right? And I have a lot of
Mhm.
Marilyn Manson fans in my audience. Occasionally, people who are hostile to my views of the trans issue, they will bring this up to me and they'll say, "Oh, you're such a hypocrite because look, here's Marilyn Manson dressed
Yeah.
up like a woman with tits." And what I will say to that is, first of all, I don't have to agree with everything the guy does or presents to defend him, but I thought this was cool. The idea, y'all, is that it's a costume. Marilyn Manson is not trans. He's never been trans. He's never claimed that he was a woman, and we have to regard him as a woman.
Hmm.
All he did was, back when this was edgy,
Yeah.
what, 20 years ago, or
20
maybe
years
not that
ago.
many, but back
Yeah.
when it was edgy, he made an edgy artistic statement, and I think it's cool. I love this costume. I think it's interesting. I think back in its time it was shocking and whatever. But y'all, you can't leap from this to then telling me that Marilyn Manson is trans. And
It's
so
like
to
when
me,
people argue about whether Kurt Cobain would be trans if he was still alive, and I just roll my eyes.
yeah, because he would wear
Wore
a
a
daisy
dress.
in his hair
Yeah.
and dress. Yeah. But that was all about being edgy and countercultural and artistic. And so people are they're conflating things here. And I don't know what Marilyn Manson thinks about the trans issue. I mean, maybe he disagrees with me on this too, but like it's a big stretch to say that because of this costume that we have to accept, Marilyn Manson as a trans figure, or trans
I
character.
also think that for the average celebrity who doesn't want nor care about a lot of these issues because they just want to do their job and make their living and stuff like that, if somebody asks you a question about a topic like that, just don't answer. Just leave it be, right? Like, there is no answer that helps you.
Yes, I would
There
agree.
isn't.
I would agree with
Unless
that.
you're willing to back your just whole hog into a movement like that and make that most of your identity. And that's the problem I have with so much of this stuff today is like your opinions on things. It's like anybody who has an opinion that isn't, they get mad when actors who might be more conservative don't speak up, right? And I'm like, bro, okay, you're an actor. Maybe you're not a leading guy, but you're number 3, number 4 on the call sheet. You've got some conservative views. Do you really care enough about the politics that you might care a little bit about to
put that on the line?
to basically doom yourself to a lifetime of Daily Wire movies just so that you can have your opinion heard on a couple of things? Look, that's fine if you want to do that and make the movies, make all that stuff. But I don't begrudge an actor for staying quiet, because like people who care infinitely about politics can't imagine a world where somebody has political views, but it's not the end all be all.
Right.
So if it's not the be all end all, if you don't look at everything as the, if we don't expose this, the world is going to explode. If that's not you, if like you vaguely agree with like some of Trump's foreign policy and the rest of it is just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel about all that. Like, am I supposed to expect all of those people to just give up everything?
No.
No.
No. And, even in our normal lives, like normal people, to a degree, I think this question comes up and I have the same attitude. Like, for instance, I'll tell you, like during COVID, when we were like several months into COVID, or maybe it was a year, and there were more and more workplace vaccination mandates.
Mhm.
So I was teaching at that point at a college, a 4-year college in Texas. And I was on a year-to-year contract, and so it was very easy for me to be let go. And of course, I ended up being let go after 7 years with faculty cuts in the wake of COVID, actually. But
Yeah.
well, it's actually more complicated than that, because they also wanted to get rid of a bunch of white instructors so that they could hire minority instructors, because the English department was being sued for racism. It was complete bullshit, but racism by some former students. Anyway, long story short, though, when I had a job, though, teaching at this college, and this was in the wake of COVID after like a year, they put in a mandate that we professors had to wear masks to every class and everywhere on campus, and then also that we had to get the shot, or the series of shots, and you had to do that. And so I think that they had a loophole for the shots where you could agree to be tested every day, to show up at their health clinic every single day to get a COVID test every single day. But they were trying to make it as hard on you as possible, right?
Of course.
And so anyway, but I got into this kind of debate in a way with my significant other, because he was extremely resistant to and hostile to any kind of mandates or pressure around COVID or the shot or masking. Like he never wore a mask. He refused to, because he thought it was not necessary, and it was authoritarian to be pressuring people and all of that. Right. So he was very much against all this. I was ideologically against it as well. And I made a couple of videos even at the time talking about it, but I was not willing to basically lose my job over it, or to cause such a scene at my work that they would want to let me go for that. And we kind of got into a bit of a fight about it, because he said, well, he's like, these are those times when you have to stand up for principles. And I don't know, it's always that cut and dry. So I didn't end up getting the shot, but but for some reason they did not actually require me to come in. I don't know if it was just an empty thread, or they lost track of it, or whatever. But I did have to mask up every day, even though I thought it was dumb.
I got very lucky not having any, like the job I was working at the time didn't require me to get the shot or anything like that. And I didn't have to wear a mask at work or anything. So
and you weren't working on Timcast at that time, right?
No, that wasn't until I started, I think it'll be 3 years on the 13th or something like that. So like 2021. But in 2020, I was doing like apartment maintenance. So I was like, I would go around and fix things in apartment buildings and stuff like that, and sweep vacuum and all that stuff. So my job didn't put me in contact with a whole ton of people anyways. Like I was pretty, listened to a lot of podcasts at that time, and wasn't around a lot of people, but that was a crazy time.
It's interesting to look back at it, because I just watched a horror movie like a month or so ago by some of the people who did Scream. In fact, I think it was a Kevin Williamson
Kevin
script.
Williamson,
Yeah,
love Kevin
it's called
Williamson.
Sick, and it takes place in the early days of COVID. I think it was actually that March week when
Mhm.
the shit just totally hit the fan and the stock market, crashed and so forth, right? But anyway, the theme of this horror movie is people who get really obsessed with enforcing the COVID rules, and they start
Yeah.
killing people who are not
Look,
who are not
there's
adhering to it.
precedent for that with how like people on Twitter who would be like, if you didn't get the vaccine and you die, good. Like there was plenty of that discourse online, right? Like that was not an unheard of take to hear from people. It's we saw a lot of what the worst humanity has to offer, at least in the way that we treat one another, right? On a basic human level. I actually have fond memories of COVID because look, I got to skate every single day and the country was basically shut down. So
Right.
I could go skate rails, ledges at any business I wanted and get away with it every single day. And I look back at COVID very, very fondly because I went to my job and then the rest of it was like skating through a ghost town. It was a truly surreal experience.
It was definitely surreal. That is true. And I know people were afraid, and I know toward the beginning especially, we didn't know, and I know that there are a lot of people who think that not getting the COVID vax is the same as not getting any vaccinations when you're a
Mhm.
child and all of that, and it's just vaccine denial. I mean, that's not the case for me or a lot of other people, but I understand that there were a lot of people who are coming from a place of fear, and people in my audience who maybe had these attitudes or still do, coming from a place of fear and thinking that it was just irresponsible and selfish of people not to do these things. But it where I got upset was I felt like people on the other side of this, so to speak, were not seeing that we had legitimate reasons for feeling the way
Mhm.
that we felt. That no, it's not just about, oh, it's a hassle to put on a
Mhm.
mask, or I hate sweating in the mask, or it's hard to
Mhm.
hear people or whatever. No, it's like also like a deeper issue of like, this thing is not even apparently effective, but then we're forcing people to do it. And
I mean, that was disproven early on, right? That
right,
they said that they don't have any, that the masks don't have any effect. But also, not just that, but like very recently, Fauci said that they just made up the 6 foot guidelines, which anybody with a
right.
brain knows that that was made up from the very beginning. But then, I mean, there's a lot of people that have gotten into the discussion about how scientists, like the idea of science, has become a sort of faith to a lot of people these days, which makes sense because there's comfort in the certainty that you feel when someone who is an expert in their field tells you something that they believe is true and you take them at their word.
Right.
And I just, go to your doctor and make sure they know your medical records and do what you feel is best for you. But all of this stuff is, my focus was on the way we othered one
Right.
another, the way
Right.
that we seem to turn against the people in our lives over something like this. It makes you understand why things have been as bad as they have in the past. The worst was like the people turning in their neighbors for throwing parties. Like, you are the worst of the worst that humanity has to offer if you've turned in your neighbors for throwing a party. Or that lady recently who said like she cut off her parents or family because of stuff going on with COVID. It's just like turned her family in for not just I can't with these people.
No, no, I hear you on that,
Yeah.
definitely. And then like with the shot, I know people say, "Well, you've gotten other vaccinations," but it was something that was new,
Mhm.
and it was something that apparently, I know people say, "Oh, well, they've been working on these mRNA type shots, or et cetera, for years now, or what have you." Okay, but like this is still like the first time something like this was really being used widespread in society, and they were indemnifying, the government was indemnifying the pharmaceutical companies against any lawsuits from any
Yeah, it
adverse effects.
can't be
But there was
sued.
so much that it was so like shady about it. And so I just think that it was really unfair that a number of people just refused to see that there were legitimate reasons why people would be skeptical or would not want to put something into their body. People should have an autonomy about what they put in their body. I really feel that. But
Yep, I agree.
anyways, I don't know. What else? What else? Anything we haven't covered? What are you covering tomorrow? Do you know?
We're gonna do the Olivia Culpo thing tomorrow. We didn't do that today. We wanted to save that. We're also gonna talk about how Tobey Maguire is getting shit for dating a girl who's only 3 years older than his daughter.
Oh man,
His
the age
his
police.
his new girlfriend is actually younger than Spider-Man #1 than the first Spider-Man movie. She wasn't born when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came out.
Oh, the horror, the tragedy.
Yeah. He's I think he's 49 and she's 20 or 21 or something like that.
Well, the one that I have been seeing the most about, and I understand this grosses people out. I would never tell people they shouldn't have some kind of visceral grossed out response or that they wouldn't want their kids to be in this relationship. I get it, but Bill
Yeah.
Belichick and his girlfriend, so he is 70 something, right?
It's 72,
And she's 20 what?
24.
24.
Yeah.
They met on a plane. She was working on a college paper. She was a sports major.
Well, of course
right?
she was. She certainly wasn't in post grad.
She was working, so she was a sports major or whatever it's called, and she was working on a paper for a sports ethics class.
And he's like, "Look, I know a lot about sports. I coached the Patriots to multiple Super
I know a
Bowls."
lot about ethics too, right?
Yes.
So apparently the story is that they had great conversation over the
Of
course of the
course they
flight,
did.
and that they got each other's info so he could offer her a bit more assistance with this essay for her class. So
I love it.
but yeah, so they're together now, and I don't think that I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now,
Look,
do I
he
think
is
that it's
like,
like good? I mean, good, advisable? Well, no, not necessarily. Oh, I lost you. I lost you. Ah, I hope you're not saying anything important. Oh man. Well, until Brett comes back, you can get.
my
Oh, I
audio.
hear you. I hear you.
I said he is basically measuring his life in orgasms until he
Oh no.
drops dead. So like he's having the time of his life, I am sure. Also, her last boyfriend was like 68.
He was. So she has kind of like Al Pacino's baby
Yeah,
mama.
who's
She has a
who's
type.
29 and Al Pacino's like a gazillion. He's like 89.
Yes. I feel like in this situation, both parties know what they're getting here. And she sees him and what he looks like and whatever, knows how old he is. And apparently she's either so into the benefits of the wealthy lifestyle or, it is possible to be attracted to people for more than their looks or their age or what have you. And we do know that a number of women, especially, tend to be okay with dating older men. So I don't think there's anything that people should be clutching their pearls about. It's it gives me the ick just on a basic level of it. But
I think she looks at him and she says, "This is a fantastic coach, and this is a man who knows how to lead a team." And she's really into his leadership capabilities. And she's like, "Look, I wanted a Super Bowl ring when I was young, and I'm not going to make it to the Super Bowl, but I certainly can get as close as possible."
so this was a photo or a video. I don't know, it was a video or a photo that leaked of Bill Belichick topless, basically sneaking out or leaving her apartment. And this was one of the things that came up in the Tom Brady roast. I think Gronkowski or one of the players was laughing about it. And Belichick, he was good natured. He was in the audience and he just kind of smiled or what have you. But apparently, I don't know how this leaked. I don't know if the girl leaked it or if like maybe she was sharing a ring camera or sharing a space with a neighbor. And so maybe this was him walking in front of the neighbor's ring
Yeah,
camera.
maybe it's
I
like
don't.
the neighbor's camera.
It might be, but this is him sucking in his gut and everything. But this is him topless, leaving her apartment. So. Oh man, just technology. It's so nice that we're able to see all of these things.
See, there is that magical ring camera evidence I'm always talking about.
Oh my gosh. Well, everybody, I think on that note, I don't think I missed any super chats here, but I think on that note we're gonna let it go. But y'all make sure to, and thank you, Ram, for the super sticker there. Y'all make sure to check out Brett's channel. And again, Brett, I apologize. I should have done a better thumbnail, but next time, this is a nice warm up. We get to talk, again, refamiliarize ourselves. But next time I'll do a good thumbnail. We'll get more views. But we had some funny stuff. I think I'm going to chop it up and put out some shorts.
Do it.
But everybody, check out his channel, Pop Culture Crisis. Already put it up there, but you can look it up. Just Go to
Guys,
YouTube.
we are live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So if you guys want to go and check it out, me and Mary talk about all sorts of things, pop culture, internet culture, everything that's going on like that. So if you enjoyed this discussion, I think you'll have a lot of fun with that. Certainly, Mary is far more articulate than I. So if articulate discussion is what you're looking for, if that's why you come to Kurtz's channel, you'll like Mary. So check it out for that.
Well, you're both great. And what's fun about the show too is that y'all bring in a lot more just kind of like videos and outside
Yeah.
stuff too. So,
We were freaking out today because like I don't know if there was like a memory leak on Brave or whatever, but like it was like 10 minutes before the show and like none of the videos were loading. So we were like, and I had to like do a bunch of checks and stuff like that because so much of our channel is like looking at what this idiot did on the internet. Watch the video. So I do recommend checking it out, guys.
I do find it so amusing though how much my mom does not enjoy your show because my mom is not into internet culture. She doesn't like she doesn't like high stimulation stuff either. Like she wants like very like calm. And so when I went on your show and you've got the money shooting out of the and so I was like, how did you like it, Mom? And she said, I think that's the most annoying show I've ever seen.
Yes. Look.
The boomers.
Look, yeah, I was about to say, like, fine. I tried to defend the boomers earlier, but fine. Screw you guys. I'm not going to help in the future.
Oh, man. It's so funny.
I'm just going to let the millennials talk shit about you, and you can deal with it yourself.
And Gen X. All right. Well, so everybody, this is what's going to happen. I think tomorrow night, I think that Ethan and I are going to have our showdown tomorrow night, as it were, simulcast on my channel and his. I expect it in multiple ways to be an absolute disaster, highly offensive on his part, at least, and whatever. But I'm not going after him. I'm not going to be hostile or whatever. I'm not into that. I'm just here to give you a circus, and we'll see what happens. It might explode in our faces. But check me out. I think tomorrow night we're going to do it at 9 Eastern. So I will definitely confirm that on Twitter and Instagram once I get the confirmation from him. But yeah. So anyway, that's coming up. I've got a couple of Manson videos coming out, and then I'm going to chop this up and put some of this out too. So check out my channel this week and check out Pop Culture Crisis. And thanks, Brett. We'll see y'all later.
You guys.
Thanks, AJ and my mods. Bye.